Listen well, my children, for I am about to tell you a story that has been whispered through the generations. It is a story of kindness, betrayal, and a truth that can never be hidden forever. Long ago, on the edge of a forgotten forest village, there lived a man named Adarimi. He was a palm wine tapper, a poor man with hands rough by work and a heart gentler than his circumstances. Every day before dawn, he climbed the tall palm trees to collect the wine that dripped like liquid gold. Yet he kept little for himself. The village was never kind to him. They mocked him for his simple ways, his torn clothes, and his quiet nature. But Adarimi did not fight back. He simply lived, worked, and asked for nothing. On one particular night, a night of thunder and terrible wind, everything changed. The storm was violent, shaking the very ground beneath the village. But that was not the worst part. That night, something happened that would shake the village to its soul. It was midnight when Adarimi heard the screams. He stood at the edge of his small hut, watching the darkness dance with lightning. Through the rain, he saw them, villagers chasing something, or someone. They ran with torches, their faces twisted with fear and anger. "Catch him! Catch the cursed one!" they shouted. "He brings darkness. He brings death." Adarimi's heart tightened. He had lived long enough to recognize the sound of an innocent hunt. Many times, he had hidden in shadows rather than join such cruelty. His body moved before his mind could warn him. He stepped into the storm, following the chaos deeper into the forest. The rain lashed against his skin like angry spirits. The wind pushed him back, as if the world itself was telling him to stop. But he could not stop. Something inside him, something older than fear, pulled him forward, through the downpour, through the darkness, through the shouting voices that grew more distant. Adarimi walked deeper into the forest. His feet found paths he did not know. His eyes saw things that should have been invisible. And then, suddenly he saw it. A small figure collapsed on the wet ground, trembling like a leaf caught in a hurricane. It was a boy, no more than 10 years old, bleeding from a cut on his forehead. His eyes were wide with terror, and his mouth was open in a silent scream. Around him, the forest seemed to hold its breath. Adarimi dropped to his knees. "Child," he whispered, "are you hurt?" The boy looked up, and in that moment, something passed between them, a recognition that neither could explain. The boy's lips moved. He spoke only one sentence, but those words would change everything. "They must not find me." Without hesitation, Adarimi lifted the boy and carried him through the storm. His old legs ached. His arms shook, but he did not stop. He ran through the forest as if invisible hands were pushing him forward. Behind them, the voices grew fainter. The torches flickered and died in the rain. Finally, after what felt like hours, Adarimi reached his small hut. He pushed open the wooden door and carried the boy inside. He laid him on his own sleeping mat and began to work. With a cloth soaked in water, Adarimi cleaned the boy's wounds. The cut on his forehead was deep, but not dangerous. His small hands were scraped raw from running through thorns. His feet were bleeding. As Adarimi worked, he noticed something that made his breath catch. On the boy's chest, hidden beneath his torn cloth, was a mark. Not a scar, a birthmark. It was in the shape of a royal seal, the symbol of the village's ancient kings. Adarimi had seen this mark only once before, many years ago, in a hidden scroll shown only to the elders. His hands froze. He looked at the boy's face, the strong jawline, the proud nose, the eyes that held a strange light. When the boy woke up, he was shaking with fear. "Please," he whispered, gripping Adarimi's arm. "Please don't tell anyone what you saw. Not the mark. Not anything." His voice carried an authority that did not belong to a child. "I don't understand," Adarimi said slowly. The boy's eyes filled with tears. "If they know I'm alive, they will kill me. They already killed everyone else." Adarimi's heart froze. He did not ask questions. He simply nodded and placed his hand over his heart. "Your secret is safe," he promised. The next morning, the village chief arrived at Adarimi's hut. This was unusual. Chiefs did not visit poor tappers. Chief Okonkwo was a tall man with a wide smile that never seemed genuine. His wrapper was fine cloth, and rings of gold covered his fingers. He stood in Adarimi's doorway, still smiling that smile. "Good morning, Adarimi," he said sweetly. "I heard there was some excitement in the forest last night." Adarimi's body went cold, but his face remained calm. "Just a storm, Chief," he said simply. "Nothing more." The chief's smile grew wider, but his eyes remained cold. "Strange. My men said they saw a small boy, a child running through the darkness. Have you seen such a child?" Adarimi's mind raced. The boy was sleeping in the back of the hut, hidden behind cloth. One word of truth, and everything would end. "No, Chief," Adarimi said. "I have seen no child." The chief studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Good. If you do see such a child, bring him to me immediately. He is very dangerous. A curse bringer. You understand?" Adarimi nodded. The chief turned to leave, then paused. "I would hate for anything bad to happen to you, old man. Accidents happen to those who protect the wrong people." He left, his smile hanging in the air like poison. That evening, the village gathered at the market square. A goat belonging to a merchant had gone missing. The merchant was furious, demanding justice. "Someone has stolen from me," he shouted. "Someone has brought bad luck to my household." The village elders gathered to hear the case. Adarimi was at the edge of the crowd, hoping to pass through unnoticed. But then a villager pointed at him. "It was the tapper," the man shouted. "I saw him near the merchant's compound." It was a lie, a complete and utter lie. But others quickly joined in. "Yes, I saw him too. He has always been trouble. He brings misfortune." Adarimi felt his heart sink. The chief sat on his raised seat, watching, saying nothing. But Adarimi could see the message in his eyes. Confess or face something worse. The boy, hidden at home, would be found. "It was not me," Adarimi said quietly, but his voice was drowned by the crowd's anger. He looked around at faces he had known for decades, faces of people he had helped, people he had given free palm wine to when they were sick, people he had comforted in their sadness. None of them spoke for him. None of them remembered his kindness. The chief raised his hand. "We will hold a trial tomorrow," he declared. "Justice will be done." The trial was held at dawn in the courtyard of the chief's compound. No evidence was presented. The merchant did not bring the goat to prove it was his. No one brought witnesses who had actually seen Adarimi steal anything. Yet the chief spoke as if the truth were already known. "This man harbors danger," Chief Okonkwo announced to the gathered crowd. "He brings bad luck. I have heard whispers that he hides a cursed child in his home. This theft is proof of his corruption." Adarimi stood alone, no one beside him. "I am innocent," he said firmly. "Search my home if you must. You'll find nothing." The chief smiled. "We will indeed search." His men turned toward Adarimi's hut. The old tapper's mind raced. The boy. They would find the boy. Everything would be over. But then something unexpected happened. The chief raised his hand again. "Actually, we will not search today. Instead, we will proceed with punishment." Adarimi's blood turned cold. "Punishment? But there is no proof. Your guilt is written on your face," the chief said calmly. "You are banished from this village. Leave before sunset, or you will be beaten to death." The crowd cheered. Justice, they believed, had been served. Adarimi returned to his hut with heavy steps. The boy was waiting, his face streaked with tears. "I heard," the child said. "They want you to leave." Adarimi began to gather his few belongings. "Yes, we must leave, both of us. Tonight, we will flee into the forest." The boy's small hand gripped his arm fiercely. "No," the child said. "You must go alone. If you take me, they will hunt us both forever. But if I stay behind and reveal myself later, on my own terms, I can—" "No," Adarimi interrupted. "I will not abandon you. They will kill you the moment I am gone." The boy's eyes filled with tears. "If you leave me, they cannot blame you. You will survive. I will find another way." Adarimi knelt before the child and took his small face in his hands. "Listen to me. I did not help you that night because I expected reward. I helped you because it was right. That does not change because the village turned against me. We face this together, or we do not face it all. The boy embraced him, tears falling. Then we die together, he whispered. Adarimi held him close. No, my child, we will not die. Trust me, the truth will protect us. Just before sunset, as the chief's men came to escort Adarimi from the village, something terrible happened. They beat him. With sticks and fists, they struck him down in the village square, so that everyone could see. They wanted to make an example of him. Adarimi did not fight back. He could have. He was stronger than he looked. But he refused to give them the satisfaction. He fell to his knees as the blows rained down. Blood dripped from his mouth. His vision blurred. The villagers watched in silence. Some looked away. Others cheered. The boy watched on the edge of the crowd, his small body shaking with rage and sorrow. When the beating finally stopped, Adarimi was barely conscious. They dragged him to the village boundary and threw him down hard. Do not return, the chief's voice came from above him, or we will kill you. Adarimi lay in the dust, breathing heavily, every part of his body screaming in pain. He thought it was over. He thought his kindness had purchased only suffering. But then, the boy stepped forward to the crowd. The child's voice rang out, clear and strong, speaking a single word, a name that had not been spoken in the village for 15 years. A name that should have been forgotten. A name that belonged to dead royalty. The crowd froze. The chief's face turned white. Adeyemi, the boy shouted. It was a royal name of the lost prince, the heir to the throne who had vanished decades ago. The child's voice carried such authority, such truth, that the entire village fell silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. The chief's face transformed. His smile vanished. His hand moved to his chest, as if his heart might leap from his body. The elders on a raised platform began to whisper urgently among themselves. Some looked toward the forest, as if seeking escape. The boy walked slowly toward Adarimi, still lying broken in the dust. This man, the child declared, helped me when all of you hunted me like an animal. This man chose compassion when the world demanded cruelty. Chaos erupted. The chief shouted orders. His guards rushed toward the boy. Seize him. Now. Kill him before. But the child had already moved. He turned and ran toward the forest, his small legs carrying him with surprising speed. Adarimi, despite his broken body, struggled to his feet. He could not let the boy face this alone. He ran after him, pain exploding through every muscle. Behind them, the chief's men followed, their torches burning bright against the darkening sky. Adarimi and the boy disappeared into the forest. Just as the sun touched the horizon, the village behind them erupted into panic and violence. The forest swallowed them like a living thing. Thorns tore their skin. Roots tried to trip them. But the forest also seemed to guide them, creating paths where there should have been none. The boy ran ahead, moving with surprising confidence through the darkness. Adarimi followed, his body screaming, but his heart burning with purpose. Behind them, the guards' voices grew fainter. The forest was protecting them. After what felt like hours, they heard it, the sound of flowing water. The boy led Adarimi toward the sound. Through the trees, they found it, a river wide and deep, glowing faintly in the moonlight. It was a sacred river, the one villagers spoke of only in whispers. Legend said that the spirits of ancient ancestors lived in these waters. Legend said that judgment could be found here, but only by those pure of heart. The boy stopped at the water's edge, breathing heavily. We are safe now, he whispered. But Adarimi was not sure. The water seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Shadows moved beneath the surface. And then, from the mist that rose above the river, a figure emerged. It was a woman, or something that wore the shape of a woman. Her skin shimmered like starlight. Her eyes held the depth of the ocean. She looked directly at the boy and spoke. Prince Adeyemi, she said, her voice like wine through ancient trees. I have been waiting for you. The boy fell to his knees. River priestess, he whispered. I did not know if you'd still be here. Adarimi stepped back, unsure whether to fear or honor this being. The priestess turned her gaze to him. And you are Adarimi, the palm wine tapper. You have shown kindness when kindness cost everything. This is rare in the world. She moved closer, and Adarimi could see that she was more spirit than flesh. Her edges seemed to fade into the air around her. I have watched over this child since his birth, the priestess continued. I protected him when his family was destroyed. I guided him when all seemed lost. But I could not be his savior. That role was reserved for someone pure enough to choose right when wrong would save him. She placed her hand on Adarimi's shoulder, and he felt warmth flow through his pain. You have passed the test that many kings have failed. Now you must hear the truth. The boy's story, it is darker and more terrible than you know. And the village that cast you out has built its power on murder and lies. The priestess led them to a hidden place by the river, where ancient stones stood in a circle. She began to speak, and as she did, images appeared in the water, visions of the past. 20 years ago, she said, Prince Adeyemi's parents ruled this village with wisdom and kindness. They had no enemies, for they treated all people with respect. But the chief then was different, greedy, ambitious, hungry for power. The images shifted. Adarimi saw the old palace, beautiful and strong. He saw the royal family, the king, the queen, and a young prince. The elders who served now were young then, the priestess continued. They conspire with Chief Okonkwo's father. They murdered the king and queen in secret. They declared the prince dead, though he was only hidden away. The water showed a terrible night. Guard seizing the child, carrying him away. I saved him, the priestess said. I took him from the village and kept him safe for 15 years. But the time has come for him to claim what is rightfully his, and for the murderers to be punished. Adarimi's mind reeled. The people he had known his whole life, they were not just cruel, they were murderers. They had built their happiness on the bones of innocence. The priestess turned to them both. Justice must be public or it fails. You must return to the village, and you must be ready for what comes next. They returned as dawn broke. The village was in chaos. The chief had declared martial law, claiming the boy was an evil spirit. Guards walked through the streets, searching, interrogating. But something strange began to happen. When the chief tried to speak in the market, his voice cracked. His words came out twisted and wrong. When his closest advisors tried to lie about the boy's origins, they suddenly lost their voices mid-sentence. Their mouths opened, but nothing came out. The villagers became frightened. It is a curse, they whispered. The curse of the forest. The curse of the spirits. Some elders fell ill, their minds becoming confused. Others saw visions of the dead, the king and queen, their murdered faces appearing in smoke and shadow. The priestess's magic was working. The truth was rising like a tide, pushing against the lies that had held the village captive. The chief felt it most of all. His confident manner shattered. His lies stuck in his throat like thorns. He began to drink heavily, trying to escape the pressure building in his mind. And all the while, in the forest beyond the village, Adarimi and the boy waited. The priestess had given them instructions. Wait until the village breaks itself with fear. Then return. When the darkness reaches its deepest point, light will shine brightest. 3 days passed. In that time, the village descended into fear and confusion. The chief could barely speak. The guards began to question him, wondering why he was so desperate to find the boy. The people began to remember things, small cruelties, unexplained deaths, riches that appeared from nowhere. The priestess's magic had opened their minds to what they had always ignored. Then, at sunset on the 3rd day, Adarimi and the boy emerged from the forest. They did not run. They did not hide. They simply walked toward the village square, moving with slow, deliberate steps. The priestess walked between them, her form solid now, visible to all. The entire village gathered, drawn by a force they could not resist. The chief tried to run, but his legs would not obey. His guard stood frozen, unable to move. Adarimi stepped into the center of the square. His body was still bruised from the beating, but his eyes burned with a light that had not been there before. He looked at each face in the crowd, people he had known his whole life. I have brought back what you lost, he said simply, and I have brought back the truth you buried. The boy stepped forward. As he did, something remarkable happened. A staff, an ancient, beautiful staff carved with royal symbols, appeared in his hands. No one had placed it there. It simply came to him, as if responding to his presence. The staff was legendary. It had been hidden for 20 years, buried deep in the earth by the priestess herself. It was a symbol of true kingship, the object that could not be held by pretenders. The moment the boy held it, the staff bent, it bowed, and every person in the village, even those who tried to resist, fell to their knees. The chief tried to remain standing, his face twisted with rage and desperation. "This is a trick," he screamed. "An illusion. That boy is not the prince. He is a curse-bringer sent to destroy us." His voice, which had been silenced by the priestess's magic, suddenly returned. In his panic and pride, he had broken free of the spell, but the words he spoke were terrible. He screamed accusations. He declared that the boy was a demon. He commanded his guards to kill them both. His words poured out like poison, each lie more desperate than the last. But something amazing happened. With each lie, his form began to change. His skin turned gray and rough, like old stone. His fingers began to harden. The village watched in horror as the chief's lies literally transformed his body. He was turning to ash, becoming less real with every false word. "Stop!" the boy called out, his voice filled with compassion that seemed impossible for a child so wronged. "Stop this. Release him from the curse." The priestess looked surprised. "He does not deserve mercy," she said. "He murdered your parents. He has tormented your people for 20 years. The boy nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I know, but if I become like him, hard, filled with darkness, then his evil wins completely. If I can show mercy even now, then true strength is returned to this village." The chief collapsed, his transformation stopping just before he became completely stone. He lay on the ground, partly hardened, unable to move. Mercy had saved him from total destruction, though he would never be truly free. The boy turned to the villagers. "I choose not to rule with vengeance," he declared. "But I also cannot ignore what has been done. Justice will be served." He turned to the elders who had conspired in the murder. "You will give all your stolen wealth to those you have wronged. You will admit your crimes before this village, and you will live as simple people, doing work for those you harmed until your deaths." The elders began to confess, unable to resist the boy's authority. The priestess nodded in approval. The first phase of justice was complete. But then the boy did something unexpected. He turned to Adarimi and asked, "What should happen now? You have suffered more than anyone here. You were beaten and cast out for protecting me. What justice do you seek?" I turned toward Adarimi. The old tapper stood silent for a long moment, his mind processing everything that had happened. He could ask for anything. The new king, for that is what the boy was now, would grant him wealth beyond measure. He could ask to be honored, celebrated, made into a lord. He could ask for revenge against those who had hurt him. Instead, Adarimi closed his eyes and thought of his mother, long dead. He thought of the lessons she had taught him about kindness being its own reward. When he opened his eyes, he looked at the boy. "I ask for only one thing," he said quietly, "that this village becomes a place where kindness is valued again, where no one is cast out for being poor, where no child is ever hunted, as you were hunted. That is my reward." The crowd gasped. The priestess smiled, a real, genuine smile that transformed her entire being. The boy, now acknowledged as a true king, though young in years, stood before the entire village and made his declaration. "Adarimi, the palm wine tapper, has taught us something our ancestors forgot. He has shown us that true power lies not in taking or controlling, but in giving and protecting. Therefore, I declare this. Adarimi will be the advisor to the throne. He will have a voice in all decisions. His wisdom will guide me, and through me will guide this village." He paused and continued, "And more than this, I declare that poverty will no longer mean shame in our land. Those who work with their hands, whether tapping palms or planting seeds, will be honored equally with merchants and warriors. For honest work is never dishonorable." The village was transformed by these words. People began to weep, some with joy, others with the sorrow of having treated Adarimi so badly for so many years. But Adarimi himself did not gloat or demand apologies. Instead, he approached the first person who had mocked him in the market and extended his hand. "I forgive you," he said simply. The woman wept and embraced him. One by one, villagers came forward, asking forgiveness and receiving it. The healing had begun. The consequences of those who had committed evil were not violent, but they were thorough. Chief Okonkwo, still partially hardened by the priestess's curse, was allowed to recover slowly, but he was stripped of all power and position. He was made to live as the poorest person in the village, doing labor for others, hauling water, carrying wood, working in fields. Every day, he was forced to see the life that Adarimi had always lived. Every night, he was forced to contemplate his own darkness. The elders who had conspired were similarly humbled. Their gold and jewels were redistributed to families they had harmed. They had to work side by side with people they had looked down upon for decades. Some of them, in time, became genuinely kind. Others remained bitter, but could do nothing about it. The new king was just but not cruel. He punished wrongdoing without destroying the wrongdoer. This was the mercy that Adarimi had shown him, and he learned to extend it to all. The village, which had been built on lies and greed, began to be rebuilt on truth and justice. The work was slow, but it was real. Weeks passed. The boy, now known formally as King Adeyemi, was officially crowned in a ceremony that honored both the old traditions and the new values he represented. The priestess performed a ritual, her spiritual presence making the coronation sacred and true. And then, something remarkable happened. Adeyemi approached Adarimi, who stood at the edge of the crowd in humble clothes. "Come," the king said. "I have something to show you." He led Adarimi to the royal treasury, a room filled with gold, jewels, and treasures beyond imagination. "This is yours," the king declared. "I want to reward your kindness with riches beyond measure." Adarimi looked at the wealth and felt nothing. He turned to the young king. "My son, for I think of you that way now, I did not help you for reward. I helped you because you needed help. Riches cannot repay that moment, nor do they validate it. Give this gold to those who need it. Build schools. Feed the hungry. That is the reward I seek." The king smiled, a smile that held wisdom far beyond his years. "You truly are the wisest man in this kingdom," he said. "Very well, but I will give you something you cannot refuse." He gestured, and workers brought forward a beautiful house. "This is your home, built where your old hut stood. It is simple as you are, but sturdy and warm. Will you accept this?" Adarimi nodded, tears in his eyes. Over the years that followed, Adarimi became much more than an advisor. He became a father to the young king, guiding him with wisdom earned through suffering. When Adeyemi faced difficult decisions, he would consult Adarimi first. When disputes arose between villagers, they asked Adarimi to judge. The people, who had once mocked the poor tapper, now came to him with reverence. But Adarimi never let this change his nature. He remained humble and kind. When someone was poor or hungry, he would share what he had, just as he always had. When someone was grieving, he would sit with them in silence, offering his presence. He became known as a father of the village, not by title, but by the love that people felt for him. Young people sought his counsel on matters of the heart. Elders asked his wisdom on matters of tradition. He had become the living bridge between the poor and the powerful, showing that a person's value was not determined by their wealth or status. Children who had once been taught to despise him now asked their parents about his life. They wanted to be like him. The stories of how he found a lost prince in the forest and brought peace to the village were told around fires every night. Years passed. The village itself began to change. The cursed lands that had been barren for decades suddenly became fertile. Crops grew in abundance. The river began to flow with clearer water. Animals returned to the forest. It was as if the land itself was healing from the corruption that had poisoned it. The priestess, who had remained in the village, explained this to Adarimi one evening as they sat by the river. "The land responds to the hearts of its people," she said. "When they were filled with greed and lies, the land reflected that sickness. Now that truth has been planted, the land heals. She paused, looking into the water. My work here is complete. Soon I will return to the deep places where the ancestors rest. But I am leaving you with something. She gave Adarimi a small amulet, carved from ancient stone. With this always, it will remind you that kindness is never forgotten in the spiritual world. And when you need guidance, call upon it. Then mysteriously she began to fade, not disappearing suddenly, but slowly dissolving into mist, becoming one with the river itself. The village never forgot her. They built a shrine by the water to honor her memory. Decades later, when Adarimi was old and gray, King Adeyemi, now a wise and powerful ruler, called the entire village together. I have something to say, the king announced, his voice strong and clear. He looked around at the gathered people, then at Adarimi. When I was a frightened child running to the forest, this man, this poor palm wine tapper, chose to help me when helping meant losing everything. He did not know I was a prince. He did not help me for reward or honor. He helped me because I was suffering and needed help. The king walked to Adarimi and knelt before him, a king kneeling before a former slave and poor man. Before all of you, I declare Adarimi is my father, not by blood, but by deed and love. He taught me more about being a true leader than any book or elder ever could. Then the king called his own son forward, a boy of 10 years, strong and kind like both his father and his guardian. This is my heir, the king said, and he will learn from Adarimi as I have learned. Kindness will be the foundation of his reign, as it has been the foundation of mine. And so the story comes to its end, my children, though the truth of it lives on forever. Adarimi eventually passed from this world, old and surrounded by love. He was given a burial fit for kings, though he would have preferred something simple. But the people insisted. They had learned what their great ancestor had tried to teach them, that the measure of a life is not the wealth you gather, but the love you give and the suffering you ease. King Adeyemi ruled for many years with wisdom and justice. He built schools where poor children could learn. He created laws that protected the vulnerable. He ensured that no one was ever hunted or cast out as his family had been. And when his own son inherited the throne, the first thing the young prince did was visit the shrine of the river priestess and the grave of Adarimi. He left offerings and spoke words of gratitude to those who had shaped his father and, through him, shaped a better kingdom. The story of the palm wine tapper who helped a lost child, not knowing the child would own the whole village, became a legend. Mothers told it to their sons. Fathers whispered it to their daughters. And it carried a lesson that echoes through all time. Kindness given in darkness returns as light that reshapes destiny. The poor need not remain powerless. The wicked cannot hide forever. And sometimes, the greatest gift you can give someone is simply to help them when no one else will. Remember this story, my children. Let it live in your hearts. For one day, you may be the Adarimi in someone's story, the one who chooses right when wrong is easier. And in that moment, know that the universe is watching. Know that kindness is never wasted. Know that the spirits of the ancestors remember every act of compassion. And know that destiny itself bends toward those who choose to be kind.